Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we are looking at something really cool and interesting and different. Now, I will say this is going to be a little bit dated right from the moment I make it because they've come out with this same knife but with a crossbar lock. And honestly, I there are a bunch of variations of this as well. There's like a flipper and there's flippers with bolsters and there's some different steels available. And so this is one of those knives where there's literally something for everyone. I'm going to talk about this knife specifically, but I'll try to comment on some general points as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. Now, this is from Vosteed and it's the Nightshade. And Vosteed has a few different knives out there, and they've tried to, I think they're trying to differentiate themselves by being, a little bit out there, a little bit different. And certainly this knife is, but a number of their other models are as well. Now, this is not unheard of. There's some cold steels that look like this. There was a knife from, um, oh, now can't even think of the store name. Anyway, there have been a few knives that are similar in styling. This brings to mind sort of the Nesmik style knives, although that's not what this is based on. But nonetheless, um, this sort of, canted, uh, you know, downturned blade style has a lot of utility. And so it's been popular for some time in terms of various knife designs that have it, all the way from a kukri to, some of the smaller knives like a Nesmik, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago. Anyway, um, so well documented that this is a useful shape, but it hasn't been really popularized except for this knife is everywhere. Like everyone seems to have one, and a lot of people have talked about this. And again, I'm a pretty sadly pessimistic person. All right, so I normally hear a lot of hype and go, this is probably 85% hype and maybe 2% uh, better. But honestly, some of the hype here is deserved. This is a pretty impressive smallish folding knife. Especially, a number of things that stand out to me are the fact that number one, even though this is a smaller knife than I usually enjoy, in terms of using this, it's great. The ergonomics are fantastic. I feel like I've got quite a bit of blade, and the best part about this is when you go to cut something, the blade is kind of right out front. You can get a lot of pressure on that cutting edge, and of course, it's nice and thin, so you get that added as well. Now, this one is Nitro V, but I think there's like S35 VN models, and there might be other steel variants as well available. All right. So I mentioned that this is a little on the small size for me. Let me throw in a pair of two really quick just to give you an idea of how that size works out. And here's a Rat Model 1. All right, so you can see this is a little bit on the small side, but it's not, a mini knife or anything like that. It's still fairly substantial. Okay. Um, so let me give you the numbers here. 7 and 7/16 overall. That's fully open. So that's just a little under 7.5 inches. 3 and 5/16 on the blade. All right. 4 1/4 inches closed. So nice compact package, although it's pretty wide because of the blade shape there. 3 and 3/8 grip area. Now you can see for me, right, my pinky finger starts kind of wrapping around the bottom of the handle here. It still feels good. I feel confident about my grip on the knife, but if it were any smaller or if my hand were a little bit bigger, I wouldn't get a full four-finger grip on this. And the weight on this is 3.4 ounces. All right. Now, none of that is the big story. You can do a quick Google search and get all of that. But the big impressive thing about this knife is honestly the performance. It feels much bigger in hand, and that's because of that nicely contoured micarta. So it's very hand feeling and very ergonomic for a small knife. I have to give a lot of credit because I usually complain. That's usually the thing that puts me off of smaller knives. In addition to that, the blade, kind of having that negative angle to it works so well for cutting tasks. You could use this in the kitchen. You could use it For EDC type of stuff. You could even use it. It's not, maybe not enough belly. If it was a little more belly, it would even work well as a skinning knife, although generally I don't like to use folders when there's a bunch of gunk that I'm gonna have to clean out of it later, especially when I have fixed blades available. But a knife of this shape could serve that purpose exceptionally well. Um, I mentioned this is Nitro V steel with a stone wash, and while I say that, if you spend some time, go to wherever, Blade HQ or White Mountain Knives or lots of other places, especially, of course, my channel sponsors, so White Mountain Knives, Blade Ops, DLT Trading. Go check out all of the models that they have because there really is something for everyone. Like there's got to be, I don't know. I was looking a little bit before I made this video, and there must have been like 15 variations of this knife available. So I'm not going to be able to comment on every single one of those. All right. Other than to say, they're all going to have a similar shape and blade shape, and it's very comfortable and very useful. Okay. In addition, let's touch on the typical folding knife stuff. All right, we've already mentioned the ergonomics are great. I will add that the pocket clip being deep carry with flush screws works really, really well. Okay, the action is enjoyable. Really nice, snappy detent. Let me see if I can Spidey flick it. I've never tried. Yeah, it's doable. Um, it's a little awkward, but if you spent a little more time practicing, you could definitely do it. The lock bar is very accessible and really nice and heavy duty. How many times have I complained on this channel about thin lock bars? This is nice and thick. It's also milled out to save on some weight, which I appreciate very much. So all of those things are great. Open construction here with the standoff, so it's nice and easy to clean out with some forced air or whatever. It is ceramic caged bearings, as is pretty typical of so many knives these days, but the action is extremely enjoyable and fast. This one is a pretty easy review, honestly, because although initially I had some doubts about how much I'd like this knife, once I was able to get it in hand, carry it a little bit, Steve, who I borrowed this from over at Daily Pocket Dumps, go give him a follow on Instagram. I did do a little bit of cutting with this just because this blade just asks to be used. I didn't affect the edge or anything like that. I did check and I was pretty careful. This is not my knife again. So if I'm borrowing someone else's knife, I try to take it pretty easy. But I did do a little bit of cutting with this just because, as I say, this is one of those knives where it's just meant to use. It's meant to cut stuff, and it works so stinking well. All right. Overall, I have to say I'm really, really impressed with this. Now, normally I do a bunch of comparisons, but I have to say this is a tough knife to do comparisons with because there's not, we can throw in, a Rat Model 1 as a sort of heavy duty liner lock, but it's not going to feel the same. It's not going to cut the same. I could throw in, the button lock Elementum for the micarta and nice thin edge. Again, it's not going to feel the same. It's not going to cut the same. And we could go on like this, but I'm not going to do a whole bunch of comparisons because this is pretty unique and a little bit different. And I have to say, in a very good way. All right, so let's get this stuff out of the way. So yeah, this is not gonna be a super long video because there's not much to complain about. There's a lot of good stuff here. And really the main point that I want to make in this video is how surprised I am at how good this turned out to be and how enjoyable this knife really is, even though, when I looked at this, when I started seeing these on Instagram and people talking about them, I was like, meh, but when I was talking to Steve, he was talking about having a few different knives, and I said, yeah, I'd be interested in reviewing some of those. And he said, look, the Vosteed Nightshade is really good. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll check it out. What can it hurt, right? But man, he was so right, as well as many others out there who have talked about how good this knife is. It's really, really an impressive folder and doing a lot of things different that I think many, many people will enjoy. Certainly, I will say I have enjoyed this. There may be, I want to comment sort of hesitantly on this, and I saved it for the end because of this. I didn't click into every single variant of this. Some might be a little bit bigger. Like there might be one with closer to a 3.5-inch blade, but I'm not sure. All of the ones that I looked at had like the 3 1/4 blade like this one. If there is a larger one, I may actually have to go and get myself one because this is really, really good. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check those channel sponsors. We've already mentioned that. I will talk to you soon.